Hello, this is Music Tech Help Guy, and welcome to episode 9 of my Alchemy tutorial series in Logic Pro 10. In this episode, I'm going to show you guys how to work with multi-sampled instruments in Alchemy. In the previous episode, I showed you guys how to import just a single sample on each source. This time, I'm going to show you how you can import multiple samples on each source, loop them, and then also modulate them with the synthesis modulation parameters that we have out here. And I'll also show you how you can layer them with other instruments to create some cool sounds. What I'm going to use today is this upright bass that we recorded in the studio years ago. Basically, we have every single note on the bass going from E1 all the way up to E3, but it's every other note. So it's essentially an E whole tone scale. So we go up 2 full octaves. Now, one thing I just want to mention that you'll probably notice later is that if you don't know this already, upright bass sounds an octave lower than it actually is written on the page. So a written E1 actually sounds like an E0, an octave lower. So this is really E0 up to E2, not E1 to E3, but this is just the way I've labeled them up an octave. They sound like this. I'm sort of cutting them short. And if you have trouble sort of visualizing how we recorded them, this is essentially how we did it. We started on low E, skipped every other note in the chromatic scale all the way up to a high E. Now, the reason why we do that is most samplers nowadays have the ability to extrapolate pitches in between samples. So, for example, our first 2 notes are E and F sharp. Well, what about F? What if I play the note F on the keyboard? The note F on the keyboard will actually be extrapolated by the sampler. It basically uptunes the E up to F or downtunes the F sharp down to F. So we do this just to sort of save space and also make it easier on the musicians so they don't have to play every single note in a chromatic scale. And the only reason I brought up Melodyne for this is just to visually demonstrate this. All right, so the way we're going to get started first is we're going to clear our instrument here. So we have the stock setting. And we're going to change our sawtooth to import audio, just like we did last time. But this time, we're going to select multiple audio files. Now, these are all on my desktop. They're in a folder labeled Upright Bass Bode. So I'm going to click on that. And here's all of our samples. Just like before, you can click on each one and audition it. If you hold Shift, you can select all of them. Now you can drop them into this drop zone, or you can just hit import. Like if you have multiple samples from different folders, you can drop them into the drop zone. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we are in sampler mode and make sure the mapping is by pitch. Then we're going to hit import. Now, one of the things that's really, really fucking amazing about Alchemy, I was really, really surprised that it could do this, is it actually has the ability to sense the actual recorded pitch of a note, which is really fucking insane. I was really impressed by it. I didn't believe it at first because I had so many issues with the EXS24 and auto mapping. But if we go into source A's window here and click on the edit button, you'll see that it automatically auto mapped everything from E0 all the way up to E2 perfectly. So when I play this, if I start on E0 down here, chromatically, same thing. Now, you're thinking, well, Josh, you know, you had all these samples labeled properly. You know, the way the EXS24 worked is as long as you name the samples with the correct pitch name, sharp if it is sharp, and then the correct octave, it'll put it in the right place. But notice that the first sample actually went to E0, not E1. So just to prove my point here, and I like I said, I got really excited about this when I realized this. I had no clue that Alchemy could do this. I didn't believe it at first. So let me just reload Alchemy. I'm going to load it to, I'm going to clear the setting, of course, go to advanced, go back to my sawtooth here, click on that, go to import audio. And what I did, just to be a smartass, was I created a second folder called Upright Bass Bode 2. And in this one, I named all the samples just random nonsense. So let's see how well it takes it handles random nonsense. So we'll import those. And like I said, I didn't expect this to work when I tried this the first time, but even when you name the sample files just absolute nonsense, it still senses the pitch of each file that you put in. Now, in my experience playing around with it, yes, sometimes it doesn't properly auto map things. It just depends on how clean the sample is and how easily Alchemy can detect the sample pitch. So sometimes it works really well in this case, and other times it doesn't. Now notice it's taking a little bit longer to load too. I want to say, I don't know this for sure, but I think when you name the sample files their correct pitch, it has an easier time auto mapping them. So let's go to the edit window again, right here. And what do you know? It auto mapped them from E0 all the way up to E1. Let's play it and make sure everything works. There we go. Now, I just don't want all of these sample files to have random names, so I'll be right back. I'm going to re-auto map all of these with the other files that I had that were actually correctly named. All right, so I just re-imported all of the sample files again with the proper names, and again, there's really no difference. It's just really for my OCD, nothing else. So the next thing we want to do is we want to loop these samples just like we did in the EXS24 way back when. The thing is that when you work with sample-based sources, when you hold a key, the sample eventually runs out. So what you have to do is find a point in the middle of the waveform to continuously loop if you want that note to last for a longer period of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on a loop mode. I'm going to turn on continuous loop mode, which basically loops it forward. And you get this little orange bar. And what you can do with the orange bar is you can set a loop range within the waveform. Now you don't want to set it at the end because it'll end up sounding like this. We want it to be as seamless as possible. Although you're going to notice that especially with acoustic instruments, it's very difficult to make the loop seamless. You hear the little pop in there? The way we can get rid of that is we click on the loop X fade. It basically crossfades the loop, gives us an extra XF slider here that creates a crossfade. So if I want to crossfade the end point and the beginning point just by a little bit, you can pull this forward. Now, note if you pull too far forward, it will basically undo the loop. Not the loop, it'll undo the crossfade on the loop. So you can only pull forward so far. So let's do like there. And sometimes the best thing you can do is find a different starting point here. You hear the tone at the beginning is a little brighter than the tone at the end. The problem is that if the loop is too short, you can start to hear the motion of the loop. So we just sort of have to deal with it. So I'm going to click on the next one, do the same thing, set a little loop range there. Change the loop mode to continuous, turn on the crossfade, move to the next one. Set a loop range, turn on the loop mode, turn on crossfade, and so forth and so on until we get to the end of this. So I'm going to, off screen, I'm going to edit all of these in this exact same way, and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, and every single sample file that we have now has a loop on it. They're not all optimal, you know, they don't sound perfect. You can definitely tell there's a loop there. We'll just have to work within the sampler to sort of disguise that a little bit better, maybe with some reverb and some effects. All right, so to close the sample editor, You just click on the little X up here. Takes us back to the main window here. A couple other things I want to do with my instrument is I want to sort of make the attack not so hard sounding. I want it a little softer, so I'm going to pull the attack time up a bit. Sounds more like a string instrument to me. I'm going to pull the release up a tad. Maybe not that much. No, that's down further. And then I'm going to add some reverb to everything. So I'm going to go to my effects, go to my main. We'll turn on the convolution reverb. And I'll try a nice, real ambient, large hall. I really like the Dream Hall. Oh, it's not really a realistic sounding hall. It's just very ambient. It's got a little bit of an echo to it. So I really like that echo in there. Now we could stop right there and say, okay, we're done. There's our bass instrument and then work with it. But I want to like maybe layer this with some other things. Let's go to source B and let's find a nice soft but sort of fuzzy waveform to layer with our bass here. Obviously the sawtooth isn't going to do it. So let's go to something else. Let's use the drive edge. Let's bump it up an octave. It's a little low. Pull up the number of voices and detune it a bit. Turn on a low pass filter. Let's pull the volume down a bit. Let's see what both of these sound like together. Yeah, let's try a different sound. That one's a little warmer. Cool. Now, you can also layer this with some of the techniques that we used in the last video. Maybe you want sort of a sequenced sound to go along with this. Maybe we'll pull in, I don't know, let's pull in square wave sound. Pull it up a couple octaves. We'll filter that out. We'll make the square wave arpeggiate. Doesn't even need to be up that far. Instead of using like an arpeggio with a synthesizer, we can also do kind of what we did in the last video, and we can import, like, say, a drum sample and create something rhythmic out of this. Let me just find a kick drum here. Let's use that one. There it is. Obviously, I don't want this to be key scaled, So I'll turn that off. And I'll do what I did in the last video, and that's make sure that our percussion voices are monophonic and re-triggering. And let's just turn off our other two voices for now. So right now our arpeggiator is basically just running in eighth notes. And let's maybe, I don't know, just do something interesting with this. All right, that's fine. Let's add another drum sample in here. I think I had some toms that were decent sounding. There we go. A flamming tom. Let's turn off the key scaling on that one. Make it monophonic. Change the mode to re-trigger. Go to arpeggio for D. Turn on the arpeggiator. Obviously, we don't want that. Let's do something with this. And let's play with the panning too. Let's see, 7 to 9. And then 12, 13, 16. Trying a low pass filter here. And then maybe let's throw some delay on these toms. Let's use a filter 1 effects bus A. Put a little delay on there, a little bit of synced delay. We'll make one go to the 8th note. We'll make one go to... Just make one go to a quarter note and one go to a dotted quarter note. Let's turn off the kick drum. There we go. It's kind of cool. Let's turn on these low pass filters. There we go. Put the kick back in there. Let's low pass the kick as well. All right, let's listen to this with the synthesizer in there too. And let's do something to modulate the volume of this. Let's modulate it with a sequencer. And one of the things you'll notice is that the sequencer re-triggers itself. And that's just because the drums are on re-trigger mode. They're also re-triggering other things. And then add our bass in. And there you go. So that's just building a basic multi-sampled instrument and layering it with other elements. In the next video, we'll continue working with the sample editor, and I'll go through some of the other advanced features in the sampler. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.